if you're starting, don't ever use ChatGPT. Like, don't do that.
What do software engineers do?
Devs have a bad habit of obfuscating their job, making it seem more difficult than it is.
Is the job that I want to get in the next 10 years going to still be around?
If you're going to go to school for something you can't learn yourself. This might be upsetting to devs who listen to this. Like, there's a lot of bad in dev culture. Devs don't work that hard.
What makes good code?
Do you feel like a computer science degree prepared you well for the actual real world of software engineering?
Well, Hunter, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
This is fun to have you on the podcast. So you are a co-founder of Enzy. So we'll get into that a little bit. We'll have you describe to our audience kind of what's going on there. But you have experience in product development. You're an engineer, developer, whatever you want to call it. Tell us a little bit about how you got there and kind of your journey to that point.
So my background is in computer science. I graduated in computer science from the U back in 2019, 2020. I can't remember exactly when. I worked at a company called Master Control. Well, I did some internships at some other smaller tech companies, but my first real big internship where I made $20 an hour, and I thought I was all big and hot.
Oh yeah, no, that's the big bucks. That's the big bucks, right?
I was making $12 an hour as a dev intern, and I wanted a raise, and my boss at that time didn't want to give it, and I was like, well, I think I could go somewhere else, and I found Master Control, which is a great place. It was like one of the best jobs. I love that place. I worked there as I went through school. They supported me. They actually offered me a full-time job before I graduated.
Oh, that's
nice.
good.
Yeah, and I was married, I had a kid, I was working full-time, and I went to school, and I finished my senior year. I did it a little bit slower, but like I had a great opportunity, so I went with it.
Yeah.
And then I shortly after, founded Enzy, and then really just had to like figure a lot of things out. I feel like on the software development side, me and another co-founder, well, there were three co-founders that were really technical, had to just learn as much as we could about how to build an app. So I'm a full stack developer. I specialize in Angular. I lean more front end. I like the design. I like the user experience. And then I have co-founders who are like very Java heavy database nerds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
so
my
for our
background.
listeners, like, what's the difference between front end and back end?
Yeah.
And what's a full stack developer?
Yeah. What does that even mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So full stack is the term of like, maybe let me break down the components of like software engineering. So when you look at Airbnb, and you see this really beautiful UI, and the UI means user interface, so the buttons, the layout, the calendar, the pictures. Somebody has to write the code for that to work, but the logic of Colton booked this place at this day and has or hasn't paid or has left this review. That's called back-end logic. And so you have to put both of those together in something called a full stack. That's front-end and back-end.
Yeah, okay.
So, and you write your front-end in various languages. There's different packages. There's different options. It's same with the back-end, right? And it's all a matter of preference of what you like to do. So the guys who are really nerdy, who probably won't come on a podcast because they don't like talking to people.
Some people, sometimes.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll consume the content.
Yeah.
They'll watch it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'd be curious if they disagree, but a lot of back-end guys don't like to interface with people or customers, right?
Sure.
They love to be given a really complicated task and do it very, very well.
In the dark.
In the dark. And that's not even a joke.
No.
Yeah, some of them do actually.
Yeah.
Yes, I am familiar with some people.
And so you
like
need
that.
it. You need both, right? You need to go. You need to get all types of skill sets to make an app great. So if you're too back-end heavy and you have the world's greatest logic, but your mom can't use the app, then you limit users so heavily.
Yeah.
Right.
How many different languages are there?
I don't know.
That's how many. That's how many there are.
Yeah,
There's too many to count.
Yeah, because like new ones are constantly being invented.
Yeah.
Right. I know that there's several really popular ones that are dominating the industry, right, for front and back end. Like back end, Java is like the tried and true. And I'm going to speak back end, but like there's new ones that I don't even know about. Java is a really big one. C#, Go, Python. Those are like kind of the really big players. Scala. And there's also languages, and there's something called frameworks where you add like certain flavor to the language to make it easier, where you kind of modernize it, because Java was written a long time ago, but there are new principles that have been made that you can kind of enhance it. For front end, there's probably more front end languages than back end languages. I would assert, but I could be wrong.
Sure.
Angular, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, like React Native, Flutter. Anyway, the list goes on and on.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot. So then we talk about like your journey through education. Do you feel like a computer science degree prepared you well for the actual real world of software engineering?
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting question. If you go like pound for pound, every class I took, maybe half of it's throwaway.
But people have that criticism about college in general, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, well, who cares if I learn about, earth sciences when I want to be whatever for the gen ed? But
I'm not even talking about gen ed.
You're talking in the actual coursework.
In the CS department, and there were some gen eds that were throwaway, I think, but also like the whole point of college is to try to teach you to think. Think through difficult problems. I'll always remember my grandpa, who was a professor at Purdue, and then later BYU. He gave the advice to all his grandkids of, if you're going to go to school for something you can't learn yourself.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not the type of guy who could have figured out computer science by myself. And there are people who can and do do it very well. And so what studying computer science did for me was it just beat the crap out of me for like 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Like that's the only way I can describe it. And then now at work, any job, any problem, I'm like, oh yeah, we can break it down to first principles and figure it out. Because I've been thrown in that water so many times. But yeah, there's tons of languages even and content that was given to me in my CS degree that was useless based off the path that I went. But they're also trying to like broadly shape people, because some percentage of their graduates are going to be entrepreneurs. Some people are going to work for big tech companies. Some people are going to be academics. And they need a framework for all of them.
I love that, actually. Go to school to learn something that you can't teach yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why else would you buy a product?
Yeah.
Like think about it that way. Like if you can, I don't know, like if you could do anything by yourself, don't pay someone else to do it.
Yeah.
But like go do something that's super, super hard. That should be your aim, I think.
Yeah.
So what were some of the things that you knew that you couldn't learn this skill on your own? Like, because if someone is watching this and they're either in college and they think, hey, I want to be a developer.
Or they're thinking about going to college.
Or they're thinking about going to college, right? Do I take the route of talking or attending a class where someone just talks at me on how to do these things? So maybe there's some hands-on stuff. Or do I take the route of YouTube or whatever online courses or
even like boot camps?
Boot camps. Yeah. Like what were the things for you to identify, like, I need more of a professional, structured way?
For anyone who's trying to think through the next couple of years of their life, I would say the path up the mountain is never straight. So start something. Start YouTube and probably try things that have the least cost and least risk first. Try YouTube. If you grasp a Python course, you can get some momentum. If you try it and you are completely overwhelmed, then that's a good indicator that's probably not a good system, right? And then, boot camps are an interesting idea. It just depends on what your goal is, right? You can make a good living, and oftentimes the boot camp provides a good living much more than what people used to be doing as far as like they were in a trade. But you also have to understand that there could be caps and limits. Boot camps are kind of an oversaturated market right now.
Yeah.
But it just depends on where your aim is at. So before you pick any path, you have to think about what your aim is. Like, do you want to start a company? Do you want to be a rock star developer at Google? Do you want to just provide for your family and have a great life?
Sure.
Right? And they're different, and then you need to like reverse engineer the steps, I'd say.
We know each other personally.
You teach my son in church.
It's true. Yeah, no.
Oh man,
his son's great.
Could you find a better role model? Probably. Probably.
I think I'm doing it right. I don't know. Your family, you come from a line of talented people in the software development space. How much of that has influenced your decision to get to where you are or have this be your interest?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say it's influenced me to my DNA. Like, I have never not considered being an entrepreneur, ever. I just, there's there's something inherently wrong with me that is probably wrong with my son that he doesn't like to be told what to do. And the idea of working for someone else kind of drives me absolutely crazy. So, yeah, I'm blessed to have great role models in my family of people who have been in tech for generations up until like my grandfather, who has an unbelievable, incredible story, founded one of the first fintech companies back like as the internet was being invented.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Wow.
Oh, cool.
Which then transferred over to my dad, who, again, has this just inherent problem of he cannot work for other people and he cannot stop working. He's kind of like a Elon Musk light to a degree, right? Like, where you hit a point where it's like, hey, why are you working? And he's like, I just love it. I just can't not start tech companies, right? I've got uncles in the space as well. I got a brother who I have two brothers working at a tech company. One of them, he's like really, really heavy into AI. He's a professor at BYU in AI. And then I have a younger brother studying computer science with emphasis in AI at Wisconsin right now.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's definitely been a huge influence. It's been a big motivating factor just to be better than my brothers.
The competition.
Yeah. And kind of going back to gaming, we like to game together.
Yeah.
We did a little tournament. I won, and I got this little trophy, and I put it in my office, and my brother comes and visits, and I make him see it. So
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love there's like this weird Jenkins gene that we just love to do this. And I will never not do it.
So let's talk a little bit about to enlighten the audience and the listeners. When you think about software engineering, like, what do you actually do?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a
like, because like it was like, okay, it was like, well, what do software engineers do?
Yeah. So let me break it down to an analogy. So I think software engineers are like fish because I love fishing.
Oh, okay.
Different fish do different things, and if we have the ocean, you have fish up at the top by the coral reef, which are really beautiful fish that do one thing and hunt away and live a certain way. And then you have fish that live where there's no light and they're really dark. And they're really weird looking fish, right?
Okay.
Those are the front end guys.
We've all seen Finding Nemo.
Yes, right? Those are the front end guys. They're really beautiful fish. And then those are the back end guys. And then you have fish in the middle that can do a little bit of both. Those are the full stack guys. Those are like the big old tunas or marlins, right? And so it really depends on like the problems you're trying to solve, is what I'm trying to say. Some front end people will work with UI UX designers and understand like how many clicks does it take for you to do something, and their whole job is to minimize clicks. There's like a weird mental economy for clicks, and you might not even know this, but if you use an app that requires too many clicks, you're going to hate it, right? But an app that just guesses for you in the right way and wins that battle, you'll enjoy and you'll use more, right?
Sure.
And that's a big win. Whereas like back-end guys might solve infrastructure and scalability. So like at Enzy, we hit a certain threshold where we had so many users. I mean, this is a great problem to have, right?
Oh, yeah.
We had so many users using the app, but it was slowing down the app and breaking the app. And, like, that's not my area of expertise. I'm not that fish. So we hired a guy who just, like, doesn't talk to any customers, doesn't talk to many people. Super pleasant guy. I love this guy. Really good at ping pong.
Yeah.
But has figured out how to scale us to the latest AWS system, so that's Amazon Web Services.
Yeah.
So then our systems can automatically scale, that can grow and collapse based off of current user data, right? So that's one task. And then we have middle of the road guys who can take a brand new feature, a brand new page, can understand, okay, I understand well enough the general UX principles. I understand how to scale something architecturally in the back end, how to write good database tables, how to write good endpoints. They can put it all together, and they're a very unique, powerful blend, and they can deliver that to the customer.
Maybe a very naive question. How long does it take to build an app? From ideation to like out on the market, people are downloading.
How many people?
Or how
Let's
much?
say two.
Two people? I mean, like if it's your mom, like you can do it in a couple months, your mom and a friend, but like a customer, like a good app that's worth its salt is probably 2 years. Like, and I'm talking probably an enterprise app. Like you can make little apps that, solve a diet issue maybe in a couple months.
Sure.
Right. You can make an app that helps you. This is a great thing for like students. Like make your first app that helps solve a problem for you.
Right. And like a checklist or something simple.
And there's infinity of those apps.
Yeah.
But they're great apps to start with. There's actually a great idea, especially as you're trying to learn new languages. This isn't my idea. This is from like a guy I met at Master Control. So there's something called, I believe, and I could be wrong, called a kata. This is what samurais used to do to like, they would do the same movement to prepare for war. He called it a coding kata, where there was the exact same app you would write every time you wanted to learn a new language. So you would write your
interesting.
You'd write your to-do list in Angular, and then in React Native, and then in Flutter. So then you like start to build that muscle memory within the languages.
Oh, interesting.
So the more apps you write, the better, I guess. Like,
yeah. So it's like when you already have, and this is what I'm interpreting from what you're saying, when you already have the function down, like you know exactly what you need it to do.
Yeah.
Then what you're really focusing on is how you get the code to do that same kata, right? That action.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how do I get this new language to do exactly what I already know it needs to do? And then you can apply that. So then you're really just you're not focusing on what does this app do? You're focusing solely on how do I make it work?
Yeah.
One of the big issues I think with software engineering is like humans can't think about multiple things well at the same time. And
because we're dumb.
We are like, dude, we're very creative, but like in terms of like parallel compute.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You can't do it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you remove that element of like creativity and you're like, I know what it's supposed to do, I'm just going to focus on X, Y, Z, like building a to-do list. Like every new person should try to build a to-do list, save it in the database, authenticate. So I don't see your to-dos, you don't see mine. And then, build it out, a website. Like actually the very first piece of advice for anyone who wants to build something is like build your own About Me website.
Oh, okay.
It's super light, it's super easy, and it's very useful because you can send it to people and people will actually look at it.
Yeah.
I always tell people like that's where you should start. And actually I feel like I can filter out people who are serious about getting into dev because they do that or they don't. It's like the most trivial task.
Should people have like a portfolio? Because I think of like photographers or videographers or designers or whatever. Like, should developers have some sort of like, hey, this is what I've done? Because how else would someone prove how well they are at a certain task, or being a full stack developer, front end or back end?
Yeah. So the answer always with anything with computer science is it's nuanced, right? If you're a front end developer, you should absolutely have a portfolio. You should make photography websites or Christmas websites. You should make like really kind of silly websites just to show what you can do, and have the code hosted on GitHub that someone could read and look at. If you're a deep backend infrastructure guy, that's a really hard thing to have a portfolio for. But in terms of trying to analyze intelligence, there's something called the whiteboard test. And I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's a very daunting idea. And a lot of people do this for interviews. While it's mildly debated if it's effective.
Sure. Like any interview tactic, I think. Yeah.
Those questions.
But basically, like you walk into a room and there's this really hard computer science problem on the whiteboard, and you have to solve it using something called pseudocode. So pseudocode is just like the higher level principles of all languages. And you have to solve it by writing out the algorithm or the function right then and there, and people sit and grade and judge you. And so that's one way to do it. But also companies are getting better, and I feel like they like to do take-home tests. Sure. Take the whole weekend. Use the internet. Use ChatGPT, because which, by the way, if you're starting, don't ever use ChatGPT. Don't do that. It will hurt you so badly. But
people know. The people that know will know.
Yeah, that's a topic I want to get into a little bit. We'll get into AI.
Yeah, but anyway, take-home test is a really good way to kind of figure out if you are worth your salt in terms of something that's more complicated. But a portfolio is good if you are if you're a Nemo, right? If you're up here at the top.
How does someone differentiate themselves from another developer? Because I feel like that there's I've worked at a startup. Where, to your point, there were devs that were just in the back, heads down, don't bug me. They had their headphones on and they just pumped out code. Cool. And then there were other devs that they were a little bit more front end, or kind of like that middle ground fish that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And then I've also worked at a corporation where just devs were a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
And they were everywhere. And it's like, I need this thing built, or I need help with this thing. Go give it to person X. Oh, they're on vacation. Oh, okay, that's okay. Just take this and go give it to person Y. And it's just like someone's work can just kind of be tossed around back and forth. Like, so how do people differentiate themselves or stand out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ideas that come to my mind. The first is devs have a bad habit of obfuscating their job, making it seem more difficult than it is. So then they make more money, or people are more reliant on them, so they have higher job security.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? And I can pinpoint that at organizations when that I meet developers, and I'm like, no, what we're asking isn't that hard.
Yeah.
But your boss, who isn't technical,
doesn't know that, and you aren't correcting him. Right. So I feel like honesty, transparency.
Gotcha.
Right? The other thing is, I think, and this might be upsetting to devs who listen to this, like there's a lot of bad in dev culture. Devs don't work that hard, because if no one else can do it, then you kind of have this weird monopoly-ish, especially if you've been there like 5-10 years and
sure,
nobody wants to let go of the veteran. Like, so if you want to differentiate yourself, work really hard, right? Devs are so obsessed with working remote, and I am very weary of that. We don't have any remote work at Enzy, and our devs work very hard, right? So those are a couple of fronts. I also feel like the devs who use their extracurricular curiosity on understanding new languages or new trends will have an advantage, whereas a lot of devs use that energy on like gaming, right?
Yeah.
Which, like, gaming is fun, and I like to game, but I think that there's a healthy balance. I've worked with devs who see a problem and just want to solve it no matter what, because they can't not solve it. I've worked with devs who see a problem, realize, oh, I can make this seem more difficult. I can basically lie, and I don't have to work on this, and I can delegate to someone else, or I can push it out 6 months, and nothing bad happens to me.
Sure.
So be the person who's scrappy always, 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 always. And I would say, like, joining a startup, like, you cannot hide.
Yeah.
And so if you're just in a big company forever, I don't know. It's not my speed.
Sure.
But my recommendation is, like, at least try a startup.
It sounds like ambition.
Yeah.
I think is a lot of the kind of like the underlying thing. Like, be actively engaged about, or even actively curious.
Yes.
On continuing to learn, to hone your skill, and continue to be like that sharp tool in the shed.
Yes. Yeah. Ambition. I mean, that's every career, right? And like, there's so many great problems to solve. There's so many cool things to do, but you just have to be ambitious to go do it. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
So thinking about your transition from engineering into entrepreneurship, since we've already kind of discussed like your motives and your thoughts on doing that, like tell us a little bit about like what that transition is like, right? From going from being a person who's working for a sort of company, like what did you find to be some of the biggest challenges in whether it was, identifying your startup itself, or like getting it off the ground, or like finding that first new customer? Like, what did you find to be kind of like your biggest challenges of starting a company?
The first challenge is the team.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find the right personas. You have to have people who have different skill sets, and you have to recognize that's a very good thing. And so there were 4 people who founded Enzy, and we're all very different. And then outside of that, you have to. There's a couple ways to go about startups, and I mean, I'm not a veteran expert who has all the answers, but
sure.
I have some theories. You can be a very charismatic pitchman and put together a deck and go get investors, venture capitalists to, oh, that's a great idea, let's put some money into it. Or you can be really scrappy and find what we call a live patient, right? Mm-hmm. So you find that live patient who is kind enough to let you work with them, and you probably work for free for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
But you work really hard, you solve their problem. So finding that first patient is really tough, and then you have to build something in a way that is flexible and agnostic. Because if you build something that is just for the first patient and not for the second and third, then you can get in trouble.
Yeah.
And so there's this really stressful balance of, if you're not going to go the VC route of like scrappy, building something in a flexible way, trying to create, especially I'm talking in the code, I'm not even talking about the business side, in the code, ways that the second and third people could do it. So I feel like one thing we've done at Enzy that's been a big success is we're hyper flexible in our data ingestion, let's say. So going to customers 5, 6, 15, 50, 100 is like not a problem. But it's definitely a big task at the beginning.
What are some realities of being a developer? Because I feel like from what I've seen, so I come from a world of marketing. I was a project manager at one point, and it was very much like I was the middleman between a client and the developers. It was like, hey, here's this thing. I need you guys to get it done. Let's get it done. And it was just like, cool. I'm not writing the code. I don't need to worry about that. It's all on you guys. And there were times that they were working 60, 70-hour weeks just to try to pump out, whatever it was to meet this deadline. So what are some realities that someone needs to consider if they want to become a developer?
Yeah, I would say, the first reality is like, you're probably going to make good money, right? So like that's a good reality.
Yeah.
A negative reality might be if you're building something mission critical and something breaks, people are going to look at you and be like, I'm sorry, it's Friday night, especially if you're like not at a big corporation and you're in a really important role. It's Friday night. I know you worked 80 hours this week, but this thing's broken and our customers are going to cancel if you don't fix this right now. So that could be a negative reality, right? I think it's thrilling, right?
Sure.
Like work is meaningful, life is great, and work hard when you're young, make hay while the sun shines. But also like there's a certain type of developer when you hit a really nice threshold, let's say, where that won't ever happen. And so another reality, and this is the reality that I would try to like push people away from, is you can work from home 4 days a week and do very little.
Sure.
Right? Like that's another reality. But you're constantly, if you're doing it right, you're constantly going to be trying to solve hard problems. And then if you do it incredibly well, you're going to make the user's life better. And then if you stack all of that around an app that in theory makes the world better, then you could have something super meaningful. You could solve problems that no one could dream of. And really like the technical people are going to be the bricklayers of like modern day cathedrals, right? Like that's the way to think of it. What's
your favorite thing about software engineering?
My favorite thing? I love ideas. I love ideation. I love brainstorming. I love creativity. Like before I started Enzy, I had I found this little notebook on Kickstarter for entrepreneurs where you just like wrote down all your ideas and you rated them. And in college, I would do that all the time. I was actually more distracted by that than like the schoolwork.
Sure.
And then I hit a threshold where I was like, I can actually do that idea. And so what I love about software engineering is like, you never have, and I actually started in the business school.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of business people want to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But they don't know how to build it.
Yeah.
So they have to go to the devs.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like just be that dev who had the ideas. And so what I love is like being able to have an idea, understand the problem really well, and then go out and into the world and fix it or build it and create it. And so that to me is like that's like an addictive feeling, like unequivocally, right? There are some software engineers who just love the practice of writing good code because that in of itself is like a deep flow state that brings a lot of like meaning. So you can see this in like, there are plumbers who will do the plumbing in your house in a spectacular way where they know it will never break, you'll never have a problem, and they feel good about that.
What makes good code?
Yeah. Oh, there's a great book. if my co-founder Adam Del Piano is watching this, he's like, I love this guy with all my heart. He's like a brother. I can't speak highly enough about him. He's not a Nemo, right? He's like that tuna in the middle. He talks about this book called Clean Code, and I would do the book and him a big disservice if I tried to like explain it super well.
Sure. Yeah.
But he gives this out to all the engineers, and he makes sure we reference it. But
everybody has a copy.
Everyone has a copy.
You get a copy. You get a copy.
And everyone understands it because he doesn't allow bad code. And what's funny is like when we started Enzy, he is very clean code. He's very organized. He's incredible. And this is where you need different personality types. I'm more chaotic. So there's something you can you can add something to your app called tech debt. And tech debt is essentially bad code that doesn't scale. And Adam was always against tech debt. And I was like, let's just do it this time. We're just trying to get this customer. Sure. We're just trying to, right? And at the beginning, you need that. And then you need to like pay that tech debt off. Anyway, so like what makes good code, clean code? One idea is, did you write it in a way where if someone else came into the app who knew nothing about it, could understand it? So another way to think of it is like you're setting up a car in Germany because you're BMW.
Sure.
Did you create your engine in a way that a technician in Arkansas, it can roll into their shop and they don't have to have an intense certification to work on it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. And BMW actually opts in for like their highly, highly technical engines, and you have to be certified because it does something. But, you know, Ford is, I think, more easy. I think Toyota is easier.
Yeah. Toyota and Honda are like the generic, like, easy.
At least they used to be. Who knows nowadays? Everything's
going electric.
But code's the same way. Even though it's abstract, it follows real-world principles, like physical principles. And so just think like, can you bring somebody in who's going to be able to understand it and even rewrite it to optimize it better, right?
Okay.
And that's like one piece of that book. Clean Code is a good book if you're a nerd.
Okay, Clean Code. All right, maybe we'll note that in the description of this episode.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the mention of AI.
Yeah.
So you talked about when, like, sometimes developers, they're a big advocate for working from home, and you can see how, you know, that could potentially be like either laziness or they're not doing their full potential or whatever it is, right? I want to talk about the impacts of AI because you mentioned earlier, like, if you want to learn how to write code, don't go to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So one, why? And two, how do you use AI currently, or what's like the future state or the impact of AI to developers? Because I know right now, like, I can go on there and say, hey, write me a code for this and this, right? But
you can,
but
you can.
I guess that's the topic.
Well, I'll start with students, young people trying to learn to code. You shouldn't use AI for anything if you're like below 18, unless it's like you want like a funny pickup line for a girl. Like,
sure,
that's great. Like, I'm all for it, right?
Sure.
You shouldn't use AI for your essays. You shouldn't use AI for your history class. Why? Because the whole point of school is to think.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to think, like, think of it this way. You'll leave school not knowing how to think and having great grades. You have failed. And so you really have to look in the mirror of like, do I know how to think? And yes, you're going to have lots of throwaway classes.
Sure.
Right? But you won't gain, or you won't gain the like mental fortitude to figure something out. And ChatGPT, it does a lot of things. AI does a lot of great things, but it really cuts out that step of critical thinking. And AI or ChatGPT also with code, like, cuts that critical thinking out and then oftentimes delivers something that's just, it's like a hallucination.
Yeah.
Right? And so we've had interns work for us and like they submit something. I'm like, this was from ChatGPT. I'm like, I know because this makes no sense relevant to the system. Like in a closed box, like that answer might make sense, that function might make sense, but relative to what we do,
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, big advice is just learn how to think. Now, where AI through, there's like certain tools called like Copilot that GitHub has put out, where it's really incredible, where you inject this AI into something called an IDE, basically where your code lives. It can understand relative context enough that if you start writing a function, kind of like when in Gmail, when you start typing a sentence, it can recommend how it should end.
Right.
It recommends how the function should be filled out. And for pretty generic functions that would have taken you 20 minutes to write, it does it like that.
Yeah.
And that's great. It's just like having an assistant in the garage hands you the tools that you need at the right time so you go faster, right?
Sure.
But if you don't understand the code that it gave you, do not use it, because you're not thinking, right?
Sure.
And then, like, where is AI going? That's a really big question. And, I mean, I can give opinions, most of which have been formed by conversations with my brother, who's, like, more deep into this field, who you guys should have on. He's a great guy.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
He's okay. He's not that great.
Okay. We won't tell him.
Competition.
Yeah. No, but yeah, he's a stud in this field. I think there's a big difference between something called AI and AGI. So AI is artificial intelligence. AGI is like artificial general intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And one way to think of it in kind of a simplistic form is like AGI is this idea that you can have an AI that solves problems in the real world on its own because it's goal-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, it has consciousness. A lot of people are trying to get there, but there seems to be some recent evidence as far as how we're scaling data training sets and computational power, that we're not going to get there, that it's starting to plateau. So my theory is AI does a lot of really cool things in certain domains, and the billionaires have paved this way for us to use AI in everyday work settings. Just how, like, decades ago, the billionaires paid tens of thousands of dollars for flat screen TVs.
Yeah.
And then eventually through economics, they brought it down so like everyone has flat screen TVs.
Right.
So I think we're going to see over the next 10 to 20 years kind of a gold rush of like companies solving niche problems with AI.
Right.
Like, I don't know, like an AI for walking your dog, or an AI for helping kids learn better at school.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't think we're going to get to a robot that thinks it genuinely believes it's a human, has consciousness. Like, that's not my...
No iRobot with Will Smith.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Who knows though, right?
Yeah,
like
maybe.
the AI the implementation and application of AI has been like so accelerated.
Yeah.
Compared to even like the .com boom, right?
Yeah, but the current thinking is like, and again, I'm not an expert. This is just me kind of also listening to podcasts, listening to people, but these models have gotten really good because you've increased the data training set and the computational power.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're training models on the entire internet, and so we're hitting a point where what data do you feed it? Like, we don't know. Then AI will create synthetic data to train itself on.
Right, which is
it's kind of a weird
questionable.
idea. Questionable,
like
right?
how good that really is.
Yeah. So you have a lot of these like hype companies that are dependent on funding, telling people like, yes, the models are getting better. But I think you have scientists who are saying the models are getting more efficient at tasks, but we're starting to see a plateau in terms of like hitting consciousness. We'll see.
Okay.
So yeah, and I guess like to that point, like I know some people thinking about getting into software engineering.
Yeah.
I think that the thought that goes through a lot of people's minds right now, which I think is a fair thing for people to be considering, is like, is the job that I want to get in the next 10 years going to still be around and applicable with AI? What's your thoughts on that in terms of like software engineering?
Someone's always going to have to work on the robots.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. I believe that my theory is similar to when the cotton gin was introduced in the United States.
Yeah.
A lot of people hurt.
Sure.
Because their jobs were taken. But as a society, we got a lot better. And so there's a certain subset of those Nemo fish that can be replaced. Like, you can build front-end landing page websites with an AI like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, another kind of analogy that I really liked was, and I think it's going to hold true, but there was a chess tournament where you could enter in as a human being, you could enter in an AI, and you could enter in as a team of a human and an AI. And they found the team of humans and AI won every time.
Interesting.
Right? It's like this dance. Like AI does a really good job at making us better if we understand the principles it's trying to feed us. And so I don't think engineers are going to go away.
Sure.
Right? Lame engineers might go away.
Yeah. The ones that you were talking about, the ones that
Yeah.
work 4 hours a week or whatever and hide behind the curtains, those ones might go away.
Get paid a ton of money. Yeah.
But I think I wouldn't bet against, like, if you're like 20 years old or 18 or 15 and you're like, oh, should I study computer science? It's like, yes, you should study computer science. Like, I think so. Also, take an AI class. And if you have the mathematical brain, then, like, even better. Like, we're always going to need that. Always. Okay. I think so.
We touched on this a little bit, talking about the realities of software development.
Mm-hmm.
What's kind of like the dark side or the underbelly?
The underbelly.
That people don't think about.
I'll always remember the dean of the School of Compute at the U when I graduated, and I wasn't a huge fan of the guy, but he gave a lecture, and it wasn't like for a class. He just grabbed everyone. And at the time, I felt a little annoyed, but as I've gotten older, I think it was really wise.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, look.
It's like one of those mom and dad were right sort of situations.
Yeah. He was right. He was right. He's like, look, you're about to go into the workforce. He's like, I believe this is the most competent degree coming out of the university. He's like, that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go solve problems. Don't solve problems that make the world worse. And you could do that, right? One argument he had was like, don't go optimize the stock market. That creates the illusion of wealth. Go optimize a business that creates wealth. And here I am. I'm like, no. I can do whatever I want. Like, I mean, I had no interest in going to the stock market, but I think it's a fair point. Like, a lot of energy is put into optimizing things that I don't think are very productive in the long term.
Mm-hmm.
Even like, it was developers who executed the vision of product leaders and business leaders who created social media patterns that addicted kids to social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the dark side.
Yeah.
Kids have been hurt, in particular girls.
Yeah.
And so I think pausing and thinking about, are you working on something that benefits humanity? Because you have a really powerful tool to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an important one, right? And, things are up for debate all the time, but I just think stopping and being careful about that to avoid that dark side is important.
You can tell you're passionate about what you do.
Yeah.
Which I think is a key attribute of people coming on the show too, right? If you're not passionate about it, there's really going to be maybe some silver linings or some learnings that may not come out and may be missed.
Yeah.
When you talk about being a dev, time away from family, impact on that, making the world a better place for all this. Any suggestion on if someone were to do that through like an agency or corporation, or does it matter? Like, is there a faster path to try to look at the way that you can really make an impact with this knowledge and tools and skill set that people may be seeking with computer science?
If your North Star is to do something great, whether that's change the world or like bless your family through wealth, pick the hardest path. Like, that's a really good rule. Just pick the hardest thing. Like, don't shy away from something difficult, because you will develop and then you'll be put in situations that are hard. You'll grow and you'll meet really awesome people. It's where you shy away from the challenge. And this is the principle in any industry, but it's especially true in software engineering. If you shy away from the hardship, you're not going to grow. You absolutely won't grow. You won't affect the world like in a positive way. And anyone who's worth their salt who has done something great will tell you that it was incredibly difficult. It was painful. They doubted the entire thing, but they did it, right?
To some degree, like, it's like when you do the hard things, though, it's like the medium hard things become easier, right?
Yeah.
Because like when you've done something so hard,
Yes.
like the things that were like, oh, well, this is kind of hard. It's like, oh, well, actually, now that I've done something so much harder than it, that it's actually not even kind of hard anymore. It's actually, it starts to become easier.
Right.
So here's like a perfect example of that, and this is stepping outside of software engineering, and we're dipping into like relationship advice.
Sure.
So I've been married to my wife for 8 years. We have 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
We experienced a tragedy, with COVID, her mom died.
Yeah.
And it was horribly brutal, and it was I think it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Going through that with her, and we had our 3rd child was born, and so she's not feeling great after having a baby. There's a lot of like, what's the term?
Postpartum.
Yeah, postpartum, right? And that's an incredibly difficult thing by itself, but losing her mother was also hard. I was starting Enzy and working a lot, and it was really difficult. We got on the other side of that, and I'm just in awe of my marriage and my relationship, because I'm like, we can get through anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything. Like, we can talk through anything, we can fight through anything, we can fix anything. And it was really hard. And I didn't want to go through it, but I was grateful for the fortitude that came after it. So building resilience, I think, is a very good thing that young people should be excited about. And you should work hard when you're young, because you have the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have the hormones to do it. Like, go do it now. And that's the idea of like, make hay while the sun shines. Go get it done.
Yeah, it's powerful, right? You and your wife overcome challenges, and you two are just that much stronger to accomplish the next thing. Is there anything, looking back, is there anything that has been pivotal for you that really influenced you to be where you are now? I know it's a very vague, kind of broad question, but if anything specific comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is another really great case for if you want to go to like the university route.
Yeah.
It was meeting Adam Del Piano, my co-founder. Like, he is, and we met in a business school together. Like, we weren't even in software engineering. And it's kind of a funny story how we met, but meeting him, and we took every class together. And the joke is, because I was married my freshman year of college, which is another great piece of advice, by the way. Being married, and my wife's 4 years older, being married to a hot girl who's 4 years older, it's like, while you're going to school, is one of the best things I ever did. I had roommates who were like dating around these young girls, and they weren't committing, and I was like, dude, go get a hot girl who's 4 years older. She had a full-time job, put me through school. I was like, that's awesome.
Sugar mama.
Sugar mama, yeah. She's awesome. Like, and she grew me up really fast. Anyway, that's for another time, but I took every class with Adam. And the joke was like, if you didn't count sleeping hours, I spent more hours with him than my wife for the first like 5 years of our marriage, because I was in school and we worked together, right? And so meeting him probably changed my life forever. And, you know, this is often how it is in these like founding stories, right? You have Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs met, and that changed them forever. Yeah. So I think going to college, you can meet really smart people. It's a great filtering mechanism for finding people who are hardworking. Yeah. Because you can just see who's succeeding and failing, and then you can stay close to the people who are succeeding, and you do that for a couple of years. And that right there is pretty valuable.
It's amazing how I remember growing up, and our parents, I think it was our mom, maybe it was our dad.
Sure, let's
too.
say it's one of them.
I don't know.
For the sake of the story.
50-50.
So our mom.
Just the sheer importance of having good friends has a very large impact on how we turn out just in life in general. I think with like networking stuff as well. Yeah,
I think there's like a phrase I heard down in South America, I'm sure it's in English, but like, show me who you hang out with and I'll tell you who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's a really good principle.
Are there questions that we haven't asked or things that we haven't really dove into about being a dev, founding Enzy, or being a co-founder that you wanted to touch on?
It's not even like a software engineer idea. It's just like a philosophical idea of like, we have a finite amount of time on the planet, and taking on the maximum responsibility and doing the hardest thing possible is just such a good use of that time. And like, I love to have fun. I love to go on vacation. I love to fish. I love to game. Like I love those things. And they're kind of like the salt of the meal. But if you put too much salt on it, then it just doesn't taste good to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, I think it's more of a philosophical concept of just be all you can be, right? And then the other thing is maybe the thing that's really important in terms of software engineering is this idea of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Where you feel like you're an idiot. Oh, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I felt like that every single day at the U, studying computer science. I felt that. I even still feel that. But like the key is calming down, breaking it down to first principles of like, okay, I can solve this, just like Legos, and then putting it together, and then having the fortitude to do that over and over and over, and having the motivation to just never give up, I think is a great idea. So devs feel imposter syndrome all the time, and the most insecure ones love to act like they don't. So when you start, if you start, and you should start, you're going to feel like crap.
Yeah.
But keep going, right? Keep going. You can do it. I am such a big believer. Anyone can learn anything if they have the mental fortitude.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe there's also different like hierarchies and games you could play. Like I could try really, really hard to be a physicist, and I might break the top 30%. I'm not going to break that, like the top 10, the top 5. Have a little bit of honesty and self-reflection of like, okay, am I really good at math? Am I really creative? Am I conscientious? Like taking a personality test is probably a good idea. And then fine-tuning your personality to a path. And remember, the path of the mountain doesn't have to be straight. Like you can go back and forth. You can struggle. But just keep going. Just keep going.
Be resilient.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, tell us a little bit about Enzy.
Yeah.
What it is and what you guys are trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So at a high level, Enzy is a platform that incentivizes teams off of KPIs. And I'll give you some like specific examples. So like in the sales industry, in particular in the door-to-door industry of the sales industry, there's a hard problem of engagement because it's a hard job.
Sure.
Like it's I'll always remember talking to Eric Nilsson. He's like, the thing that we did at Sunder was we figured out how to make something hard feel sexy, right? And we kind of take that idea and scale it, where it's hard to knock doors. It's hard to make calls. It's hard to ship boxes. It's hard to do a lot of these 1099 jobs. We create a system that just, here's your KPI, your key performance indicator, and we just do tournaments and incentives and leaderboards and prizes and badges and awards and recognition. So you feel like a rock star. Like we're trying to give people this feeling of meaning at work.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of at a high level.
And where can, so if someone wanted to know more about Enzy.
Yeah, let's get your plugs in here.
Oh, my plug. I'm not a sales guy.
Oh, well, that's okay.
That's all right.
But you can go to enzy.co, not com, enzy.co. Visit our website.
That's ENZY.
ENZY, which
For
actually,
those who are listening to audio only. Yeah.
yes, ENZY.co.
Wait, I'll pause really quick. How'd you come up with that name?
Oh, yeah. It comes from my oldest 2 kids, Enzo and Ivy.
Oh, okay.
That's where you get Enzy. So I always tell customers, I was like, it's my baby. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of them. So, yeah, you can.
You just told me you weren't a salesman. And then here he is going.
That's pretty good. No, he's lying. I've seen his paid his paid social media ad.
Okay.
Oh,
it's
I
out there.
I have done these. Yeah, we have a sales team who like they don't want to do the social media ads, and I'm like, if you give me a script,
I'll do it.
I got 30 minutes before lunch, and I'll do it, and we just knock it out. But yeah, visit our website to learn more. But really, what we're all about is instilling what we call high performance culture. Is our motto, right? This idea of like we don't want any mediocrity ever to persist in our customers. We want people to be excited and dialed to go to work. And this is where, and this makes a lot of sense in the door-to-door space because there needs to be a lot of momentum to do that. But we've also found great success in other industries where we need to help people feel excited about work.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks for being on, Hunter.
Yeah, guys, thank you. This is awesome. This is super fun.